what we're going to talk about is the next fusion event that is starting on Monday, which is Esme the Dancer. So we're going to talk about whether or not this fusion is worth pursuing. I just did my first fusion, Mad Hatter, and I'm going to say it was a good experience. I had just gotten Arbiter from the missions, and I felt like then was a good time to start thinking about fusions. Now, if you haven't done so already, there is a link in the description, or you can scan the QR code here on the screen to get Tayrel and Rector Drath, two amazing epic champions. Rector Drath, after you get to level 25, just as important as doing that, in the first 24 hours of playing Raid Shadow Legends, use the promo code Monkey King so that you can get Sun Wukong. Now, that'll be found in-game on the left-hand side in the main menu, or if you're on iOS, you can go onto the Plarium website and put the code in there to make sure that you get it. In addition, probably one of the best times to play Raid Shadow Legends to start right now, there's a 7-day login event where you can get Alice the Wanderer. So that is 2 legendaries, 2 epics right now. Great time. And the reason why I wanted to talk about that is that Sun Wukong's very good, and there are some things in this SMA kit that remind me of Sun Wukong, because I've been using Sun Wukong inside of the Hydra. You know, having the ability to strip away buffs and put buff immunity, it's kind of a key thing inside of the Hydra, depending on the rotation, but I've been using Sun Wukong for that. And we're going to talk about whether or not this is worth it or not. And I got to say, when I was looking over it, there was largely mixed results and mixed thoughts coming from the community. And the idea of a fusion is that you save a lot of your resources, lots of silver, lots of campaign energy and so on to get through the events. And a lot of people are saying that between the Mad Hatter event and then the follow-up event, they're stripped on resources and they're not going to be able to do it. But let's go over the kit. Firstly, we're here on Hell's Hades, which is one of my favorite websites for getting important information about the game. Actually, let's toggle over to the actual sheet because it's going to be a little bit easier to read here. First things first, aura, increase ally speed in all battles. That's pretty straightforward. I feel like that's a good one to use in Cursed City if she comes up. Noted that she is considered legendary support barbarian, and her passive right here, the second part, active effect. Whenever this champion is hit, increase the turn meter of the ally with the highest attack by 50%. And a lot of people have pointed out to me that this is super useful inside of Tag Arena, where you have to build 3 teams. Typically, like for me, I will have enough speed gear and speed characters to build 1, maybe 2 speed arena teams, because the arena is all about speed. But there's also something known as a turn 2 or go second team, and they typically have mechanics like this, so they don't need to have a 400 speed arbiter or whatever people get nowadays, 370, some bonkers number. I mean, I'm lucky to have mine at 315 arbiter, right? But so that becomes kind of this like horrible situation where it's all speed, and not necessarily possible to do that on 3 teams. And one of the missions, because once you're done with Arbiter, 2 other missions open up, and one of them does require getting up to a certain level, I believe silver something, to do it. And so people keep talking about building a go second turn, and this is the type of mechanic that works with that. Whenever this champion is hit, increase the turn meter of the ally with the highest attack by 50%. So for me, there would likely be Sun Wukong, and then Sun Wukong explodes people, and oftentimes I can one-shot the entire team. He's an amazing nuker. So that is probably the most interesting thing about the character. Let's go over the rest of it. Passive effect, when hit, has a 15% chance of randomly changing the attacker's critical hits to weak, normal, or strong hits if Modo the Peel. And so this is going to be a secondary character, and we're going to read the Hell's Hades article, which talks about the value of having Modo the Peel is on the same team, and the chance increases by 30%. So Moto of the Peel is going to be the other character, and they have some synergy between the two. It doesn't look like it's going to be absolutely vital to have them. And secondly, there's no current information on how Moto of the Peel, did I say that wrong? Moto of the Peel will be made available. A lot of people have speculated different ways that he could be released, but we'll go through all of it. Blessing of the Sands. So this is the A3. I'm having a hard time calling it A1, A2, A3. I like to call it basic, special, and ultimate, but okay, A3 places a 50% increased accuracy buff and a 30% increased buff on all allies for 2 turns, and then has a 75% chance of removing all buffs from all enemies. If Moto appeals on the same team, has a 75% chance of stealing all buffs from the entities instead. So that's pretty useful in stripping away all of the buffs from the other team. What I like about Sun Wukong is not only does he do that, he also puts the buff block, which is found on the A2 or the special. Attacks all enemies, which is good in Hydra, right? 75% chance of placing 25% weaken debuff and a block buff debuff for 2 turns. Also decreases the turn meter of all enemies. Now that typically does not work on a lot of the bosses. If Moto of the Peels on the same team, steals 20% of each enemy's turn meter instead, which could be very powerful, right? And then lastly, place a 50% increase attack buff on all allies for 1 turn. So a lot of people are kind of lukewarm to this, depending on whether or not they did the Mad Hatter. I think I'm going to make a best attempt at it and see how it goes. I don't think I have the resources to finish it. One of the things that people say, it's good to get the fusion legendaries and to go for them, and especially helpful if you happen to pull the legendary later randomly out of a shard, then that can go towards your faction guardians. So a lot of people say at a minimum getting these fusions is good for that, because the faction guardians is a big deal. So let's get into what Hell's Hades has to say about it, giving it a 4-star rating. And they're saying that Hydra is going to be the place. And they also mention some Chimera benefits as well. If you enjoyed Disney's Hunchback of Notre Dame when you were a child, then you are in luck. Esme the Dancer is the new fusion for February 2025 in Raid Shadow Legends. And she and her partner champion Moto of the Peel aren't keeping any secrets about where their inspiration is drawn from. And there he is right there. Like I said, I'm not going to go over his kit or think much about this because no idea how to get him. Probably going to be some event that is challenging, like Queen of Hearts and all the other Alice in Wonderland characters. Was kind of hard to get the characters outside of Alice and Mad Hatter. Esme brings a large amount of buffs and debuffs to her kit, which will work particularly well against the Hydra and the Chimera bosses and help complete multiple Chimera trials in particular. And I got to say this just blows my mind on how well they do PvE content here in Raid Shadow Legends. The Chimera. So I'm a newer player. I've been playing less than 6 months, like 5 months. And I'm just trying to get, on to turn 65 and, 4 supports and 1 attacker like Geomancer or something like that. And get as much damage up and survive all 65 rounds and then move up the difficulties. At the high end, they're trying to complete the trials and create multiple teams and try to figure out how to do the trials. I mean, this allows for so much theory crafting and the long-term playability of the Chimera. That's not like a one and done thing. In-game players are going to have a lot to do for a long time for these trials. If you don't know what these trials are, don't worry about it. It's an in-game player thing, but it's just like when I look at the way it was designed, it's like, wow, this was done correctly. PvE done correctly. That's Raid Shadow Legends. Think of her as the weakened version of Ugo, who's an epic. I do not have Ugo, but that's like a 4.5-star epic, which is also kind of nice. There's a lot of epics in the game that are better than some of the legendaries. With a bunch of extra on top, her ability to boost your highest attack champion turn meter by 50% every turn is very strong if you build around it. Considering using a provoke set, wow, that's high. That's next wave. That's another way of thinking about it. Provoke Sec is a piece of artifacts set for waves to direct more attacks towards her or use her against enemies with frequent AoE attacks. One weakness is that her buffs don't have the best uptime, so considering running a buff extension champion along with side her for better coverage. I've got 2 buff extenders. In fact, Mad Hatter is one of them, and then there's a epic void champion called Godseeker, which does buff extension. So I've got 2 of those in my roster. New faction war content has been teased by the devs, and I just want to talk about that. What is that? And right now, Faction Wars goes to 21, and I was like, well, are they going to take it to 25? Quasisis Kitty says, yeah, it's likely to be hard mode, and it could be interesting, but we wonder if it'll drop materials that interact with relics or maybe glyphs for relics. So Faction Wars right now is one of the primary ways of getting on a daily basis artifact materials for the forge. Primarily the perception one is of good, and glyphs, and so we'll see what that looks like. But the thing is about that, they talk about the new faction wars, but interestingly enough, she's in a different faction than her counterpart. You know, she's a barbarian and he is an ogre. Yeah, Ogren. I don't know. Let's keep reading. New Faction Wars content has been teased by the devs, and Esme is likely to excel there thanks to having 2 ways to deal with buffs on the enemy team, either by blocking them with the special or A2 or removing them with A3 and decent turn meter control. Pairing her up with her partner champion Moto of the Peel might be a challenge in faction restricted content since he is from the Ogren tribe. So they're in different tribes. She's barbarian, he's Ogren. Luckily, or unluckily, depending on your perspective, SMA does not gain any massive benefits from this pairing. They're all nice improvements to her abilities, but none of them feel essential. Moto benefits more from her than she does from him. And initially, I was thinking, well, if she is a pair, and I don't know how I'm going to get him, then skip, pass. But what they're saying, that's a good thing. And there they get the rankings and all of that. I wanted to talk about this right here. The 8 of 10 book value. 10 of 10 isn't necessarily always a good thing. It does mean that by putting the books on the character, they get significant advantages. But in some ways, I think this 8 of 10 is a better thing because the books go on randomly, right? And for me, what I'm trying to get to is the cooldown. So like here is the A3. You know, if I get, because it randomly is distributed between the A1, the A2, and A3. Don't really get to pick where. And, you know, some characters, you just have to do all of them, right? You just got to put every single book on them. But the way this is that, you know, yeah, you want to get to the level 4 for the cooldown. You want to get to the level 5 for the cooldown. But the basic really doesn't need all of this. And there might be a chance where you get to the end and you get the cooldown here and the cooldown here, but you could save a couple books here, maybe even 3 books. And so I perceive this as a good thing to have a lower number, because that means that if I, you know, start booking this character and then I don't get, you know, I get these 2 finished, but I miss some on this, then good, I stop, because those ones don't really matter. So that is of interest. Lastly, before we wrap up the video, Clan versus Clan tournament and personal rewards. Prepare your weapons and polish the armor, as the next installment of the Clan tournament will come with personal rewards. May the strongest clan hold the victory. That's all we have for today. Take care, and we'll see you in 2 weeks' time. So next week, sometime maybe on Tuesday, they're going to have the Clan versus Tan tournament, which a lot of people save a lot of their resources. Like for me, I save all my forge stuff and so on. And so that when that comes around, I'm ready to go and I get a lot of points that way. But there's 2 types. There's one that have personal rewards and ones that don't. And it looks like they alternate and they happen every 2 weeks. So once a month, they have the personal rewards one. And the one without the personal rewards, which was the last one, once your alliance gets the milestone points, there's not a lot of an advantage to winning from what I could see. It looks like there were some extra rings that were of high interest, but like, I don't know if it mattered or not. This one does, because you want to max out the personal rewards, right? In addition to the clan rewards. It's not that the other one is not as important, but this one is more important, is what I'm trying to say. All right. Just big shout out to Raid Shadow Legends for sponsoring the video. Link will be in the description if you want to download Raid Shadow Legends, get 2 free epics, or scan the QR code. And do not forget, if you're starting to play Raid Shadow Legends, the first 24 hours, use the promo code Sun Wukong, but the promo code Monkey King. It's kind of a big deal. For me, Sun Wukong is still one of the best characters that I have in my roster, and I use him almost everywhere. And then it's pretty easy to log in for 7 days. You don't even have to do it in a row. You just have to do it before the end of the event, which is a while out. All right, bye for now.